Most HVAC companies that are always busy aren't actually healthy businesses. I've sat face to face with countless HVAC owners, and their crews are busy, their phones are ringing, but they're still worrying about owner pay. Now, none of this happens by accident. This happens when your margins are thin, when your pricing is off, and when the work that you're attracting doesn't actually bring in enough money for the owner to receive pay. Now, I want to make one thing clear: busy is not the same thing as being profitable. For some reason, people think being busy in this industry is a good thing, and I think it's the most overrated goal that anyone can ever have in this industry. Being busy just means that work is happening. It doesn't show you anything about your profit. It doesn't show you about you getting paid. It doesn't show you anything. It just means you have trucks running, you have people working. Busy does not account for labor, it doesn't account for trucks, for insurance, for fuel, for overhead, and it definitely doesn't account for owner pay. At the end of every job and at the end of every month, technicians are going to get paid, the trucks are going to have to be paid for, office, insurance, rent, everything is going to get paid for. But at the end of the day, the owner pay is what's left after all of that. So if your margins are thin, this does nothing good for you. It just locks you into this terrible problem. You're pushing more volume into bad math. That's why you see all the time, like other owners in your area, you see their trucks are rolling all day long, but the owner is still stressing about pay because profit doesn't care about how hard you work. The only thing that matters for profit is how much was left after the job. And if there's nothing left after the job, then there's nothing left for you. Now, a really common mistake that I see when it comes to pricing your jobs is that a lot of owners tend to mix gross margin with net margin. And I'm going to break this down as simple as possible for you. Usually, what happens when owners incorporate net margins into their pricing, they're pricing based off of the wrong expenses. Now, here's a really easy way to think about this. Gross margins should be associated only with the things that it took to run the job. You take the money that the job brought in and you subtract exactly what it took you to run that job. And this is going to be your equipment, your labor, and your materials. Everything that's left is the gross margin for that job. Now, the purpose of the gross margin is to pay for everything else inside the business. It needs to pay for rent, insurance, utilities, trucks, lease, gas, everything. Gross margin needs to have enough room to pay for all of that. But this is where owners make a massive mistake in their pricing. They start to incorporate all of those overhead, office, truck, lease, gas, all those costs into the gross margin. If you do that, you're going to start pricing jobs either way too high or way too low. So everything is just completely way off. The fix is not going to be just magically inflating your prices. The fix is going to be understanding how much gross margin you need to make per job in order to cover all of your overhead expenses and still have enough money to pay you over. Once you know this specific number, you stop pricing based on emotion. You stop pricing just to get jobs in the door because you're the cheapest option. You start pricing so that job carries its share in the business. And when work is priced this way, being busy actually starts to make sense because you know for a fact every single job is pulling its weight. And by the way, if you need help with any of this stuff at all, go in the description, book a call with me, or simply just DM me on Facebook. You can ask me literally any question and I will answer it and I will help you no matter what. Now, this is the part where most HVAC owners never actually had the time to sit down and run through these numbers and actually come up with a calculated gross margin. So I'm going to walk through this step by step. The first thing that you need is your monthly overhead. This is every single bill that you're going to pay at the end of the month, whether you got jobs or you didn't. So office, rent, salaries, marketing, all this sort of stuff. This stuff is going to exist whether you have 100 jobs in the month or 0 jobs. This is just the cost of keeping the doors open. Now, for the sake of simple math, let's say that your overhead costs are $50,000 a month. This number is not going to care how busy you are. It doesn't, nothing matters. Like, this number is going to show up at the end of every single month, no matter what. Next, look at how many jobs you actually complete in a month. Not how many calls you're getting, not how many estimates you're sending out. Look at how many jobs you're actually completing in the month. Let's say that you run 100 jobs in 1 month. Like, this is going to be the part that changes everything. So if your overhead is $50,000 a month, as we're saying overhead 50,000, and you're running 100 jobs, you're going to divide that by 100. That means each job is going to need to contribute $500 in gross margin just to cover overhead. This is your break even. That $500 per job, it does not pay you, it does not add profit, it just keeps the business alive. Now, let's ask ourselves how much we want to actually pay ourselves. For this example, let's say we're going to pay ourselves $10,000 a month. This is going to bring our monthly overhead costs to $60,000 per month. So this is going to be $60,000 in required gross margin. So it's going to be 50 for the overhead and then another 10 for you. Now we're going to divide 60,000 by 100 and you're going to get $600 of required gross margin to cover your overhead and to pay you. And again, this is going to be just your overhead and paying you. And this is the mistake that most owners actually make. If your gross margins just cover you and overhead, there's nothing left for the business to actually grow. This is not a healthy business whatsoever. It's not profitable. It just means that the business is breaking even every single month. There's no buffer, there's no room for mistakes, there's no cash reserves for when things start slowing down. So another really important thing is you need to understand how much profit you want to actually generate for the business. Like, this is not owner pay, this is like real profit that's going to the business. Let's say you want another $10,000 as profit. You're just going to add another $10,000 to that required gross margin. So now we're up to $70,000. Again, divided by 100. Now you have $700 of required gross margin. That number, whatever it is for your business, is what you need to hit in order to stay healthy. Now, for most healthy HVAC companies, this math typically is going to land them into the 50 to 65% gross margin range, depending on the job mix. If your required margin is way higher than any of that, then something is obviously wrong. Maybe it's your pricing, your efficiency, something is wrong and it needs to be fixed. And if your margin or your required margin is way below that, then being busy will never, ever, ever fix this problem. Never. Now, this is where owners have this realization where they've been pricing jobs without knowing if it's actually going to pay the business, if it's going to cover all the overhead, if there's going to be enough in gross margin left over to pay you, and if there's going to be enough profit for the business. So they stay busy, they keep running calls, schedule is still full, but at the end of every single month, it still feels tight because the math just simply was never there. Once you know this exact number, your pricing will never be emotional again. You're not asking, is this job going to sell? You're asking, is this job going to carry its weight in the business, pay me, and leave profit? And if it doesn't, being busy is never going to fix the problem, it's just going to hide it. Now, just to wrap up, you want to make sure you're pricing jobs to cover overhead, pay yourself, and leave enough profit for the business. If you can't do that, being busy is just going to add more pressure to your business. So know your gross margins, price accordingly, and everything will become simpler. If you need help with anything in terms of pricing, hiring, systems, you just want to grow, there's a link in the description below where you can book a call with me, or you can just simply message me on Facebook. I'm a complete open book. Ask me anything and I will help you no matter what.